My name is Emily, and I just turned 22 last month. I always thought family meant unconditional love and equal treatment. Boy, was I wrong. When my brother Tyler graduated from college with average grades, my dad bought him a brand new car. When I graduated with honors, I got a bill for rent. That night changed everything I thought I knew about my place in our family. It was the moment I realized my worth would never be recognized in that house. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button to join our community of survivors who turned pain into power. Growing up, I always felt like I was living in Tyler's shadow. He was only 2 years younger than me, but somehow he always seemed to be the sun our family orbited around. When we were kids, it was subtle. Tyler would get the bigger portion of dessert, the nicer birthday presents, more attention when he was sick. Nothing dramatic enough to complain about without sounding petty, but consistent enough to create a pattern I could feel in my bones. By high school, the differences became more obvious. I was on the honor roll every semester, took AP classes, and participated in debate team and student government. Tyler struggled to maintain a C average and spent most of his time playing video games or hanging out with friends. Yet somehow, my achievements were expected while his smallest efforts were celebrated. "Look at that C+ in algebra, champ," my dad would say, giving Tyler a high five. "I knew you could do it if you tried." Meanwhile, my straight A's barely warranted a nod. Mom noticed, I think. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me with a sad smile after Dad gushed over Tyler's mediocre achievements. But she never said anything. In our house, Dad's word was law, and Mom was more concerned with keeping peace than ensuring fairness. "Your father just wants what's best for everyone," she'd say when I occasionally worked up the courage to point out the disparity. "Tyler needs more encouragement than you do. You're naturally talented." As if my success came without effort. As if I hadn't stayed up countless nights studying while Tyler played games downstairs, his laughter floating up through the floor vents. Throughout college, I maintained a 3.9 GPA while working 20 hours a week at a local coffee shop. I paid for my own car insurance, phone bill, and personal expenses. I contributed $200 monthly to household expenses, even though I lived in the dorms during semesters. I came home every other weekend to help with chores and grocery shopping. Tyler attended the same university on our parents' dime. He changed majors 3 times, took 5 years to graduate with a 2.7 GPA in communications, and never held a job. His car insurance, phone, and weekend spending money all came from our parents. When he was home, his contribution to household chores consisted of occasionally taking out the trash when specifically asked. The pattern continued with our cousins and family friends. When my cousin Jessica graduated from nursing school, Uncle Frank bought her a trip to Europe. When my childhood friend Amanda finished her teaching degree, her parents put a down payment on a condo for her. These celebrations set my expectations for what graduation gifts might look like in our family. I graduated last December with a degree in business administration, a minor in marketing, and job offers from 3 different companies. The small graduation dinner at home featured my mom's lasagna and a card with $50. Dad explained they were saving up for a proper celebration when Tyler graduated in May. "We'll do something special for both of you," he promised, though the knowing look he exchanged with Mom told me otherwise. The only person who consistently celebrated my achievements was my grandmother Elaine, my mom's mother. She lived 3 hours away but called weekly to check on my studies and work. "You're extraordinary, Emily," she would tell me. "I see how hard you work, even if others take it for granted." When I graduated, she drove through a snowstorm to attend the ceremony and gave me a beautiful pearl necklace that had belonged to her mother. "For a woman who creates her own success," the card read. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. I should have recognized that the pattern wasn't going to change. But hope is a persistent thing, especially when it comes to family. I kept believing that eventually my efforts would be recognized, that my parents would see my worth. I kept believing that Tyler's graduation dinner would somehow include a belated recognition of my achievements too. I kept believing, right up until the moment everything shattered. The reservation was at Lorenzo's, the fanciest Italian restaurant in town. Dad had booked the private dining room in the back, the one with the vineyard mural and crystal chandelier. I knew because I'd helped Mom with the arrangements while Dad was golfing with his buddies and Tyler was on a weekend trip with his friends to celebrate finishing finals. Make sure they know it's a special occasion, Dad had instructed before heading out with his golf clubs. My son's college graduation deserves the best. I spent 3 hours that Saturday helping Mom address invitations to extended family and close friends. 20 people in total, including my grandmother Elaine, who accepted immediately when I called her. "I wouldn't miss it, sweetie," she said. "And how are you doing? Are you still enjoying your new position at the marketing firm?" "I am," I told her. "They're already talking about putting me on the Jenkins account, which is huge for someone who's only been there 5 months. That's my girl," she said. And I could hear the genuine pride in her voice. "Will they be celebrating you too at this dinner? You did graduate first, after all." "I'm not sure," I admitted. "But it's okay. This is Tyler's moment." The day of the dinner, I took a half day off work to help Mom pick up the custom cake from the bakery and drop off Tyler's graduation gifts at the restaurant beforehand. I didn't peek under the wrapping paper, but the largest box was about the size of a microwave and remarkably light when I carried it inside. "Car keys," whispered Sandra, the hostess who'd gone to high school with me. "Your dad was showing the staff pictures of the car earlier. It's parked out back, so it'll be a surprise." My stomach twisted, but I forced a smile. "That's great. Tyler will be thrilled." I drove home to change, mentally calculating how many hours I'd have to work to save for a down payment on a car half as nice as whatever was waiting for Tyler. My 5-year-old Honda had been a high school graduation gift from my parents, while Tyler had received a newer model when he turned 16, simply because he'd asked for one. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Sophia as I was doing my makeup. "Good luck tonight," she wrote. "Remember, you're killing it regardless of what your family sees." Sophia had been my roommate in college and had witnessed firsthand the disparities in my family's treatment. She'd been the one to hold me when I cried after holiday breaks where Tyler received expensive gifts while I got practical items like gas cards and grocery store gift certificates. "Thanks," I texted back. "I'm trying to keep my expectations low. Text me updates," she replied. "I'll be on standby with ice cream and wine if needed." I chose a simple blue dress that I'd bought on sale last month, professional but pretty. I wanted to look successful without appearing to try too hard. Tyler would undoubtedly show up in whatever he'd rolled out of bed in and still receive all the adulation. When I arrived back at Lorenzo's, most of the family was already there. Aunt Carla and Uncle Dave were chatting with my father's sister Marilyn by the bar. My cousins Peter and Alicia were taking selfies by the fountain in the entryway. Mom was fussing with the seating arrangements, and Dad was holding court near the wine display, laughing loudly at something Tyler had just said. Tyler spotted me first. "Hey, sis," he called, waving me over. He was wearing new clothes, I noticed. Designer jeans and a button-down shirt I'd never seen before. "Looking sharp," I said, giving him a quick hug. "Congrats on graduating." "Thanks," he said. "Dad took me shopping yesterday. Said I needed to look the part of a college graduate for job interviews." He lowered his voice. "Though between you and me, I'm in no rush. Thinking of taking the summer off before I start the job hunt, you know." I nodded, not trusting myself to respond. No one had taken me shopping for interview clothes. I'd bought my first professional wardrobe with my savings and a small loan from grandmother Elaine. Dad clapped me on the shoulder. "There's my girl. Help your mother with the place cards, will you? Tyler, come meet your Uncle Rich. He's got connections at WMBC Radio that might interest you." The pattern continued throughout the cocktail hour. Tyler was paraded around to network with relatives who might advance his career, while I helped arrange gifts on the designated table and made sure everyone had drinks. Every so often, I'd catch grandmother Elaine watching me with knowing eyes. Once, she came over while I was arranging Tyler's graduation cards. "You're too good for this, you know," she said quietly. "It's fine. I said automatically. It's his day. And when is your day, Emily? She asked, but moved away before I could respond. Dinner was a lavish affair. 4 courses of Northern Italian cuisine, with wine pairings selected by my father, who fancied himself a connoisseur. Throughout the meal, relatives asked Tyler about his plans, his interests, his thoughts on current events. I fielded the occasional question about that marketing job, with most relatives seeming surprised that I'd been there 5 months already. You're still enjoying it, then? Aunt Marilyn asked, sounding genuinely surprised that employment could be satisfying. I am, I said. Actually, I'm being considered for a promotion already. Well, isn't that nice, she said, before immediately turning to Tyler. Now, Tyler, your father tells me you're considering radio. My son Brandon works in television, you know. I should connect you too. I took a long sip of wine and caught Grandmother Elaine's eye across the table. She raised her glass slightly in a private toast, and I felt a small surge of validation. As dessert was being served, my father stood up and tapped his glass with a spoon. The private dining room fell silent, all eyes turning to him expectantly. My mother beamed up at him, while Tyler straightened in his chair, trying to look humble but failing to hide his excitement. I took another sip of wine and prepared myself for what was coming. Friends and family, my father began, raising his glass. Thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate a momentous occasion. My son, Tyler James Anderson, is now officially a college graduate. A round of applause broke out. Tyler ducked his head in a show of modesty. Now, some of you might not know this, but there were times when Laura and I worried this day might never come. Indulgent laughter rippled through the room. Tyler wasn't always the most academically inclined student. That's putting it mildly, Uncle Dave called out, generating more laughter. My father continued, but what Tyler has always possessed is something far more valuable than book smarts. He has potential. He has charisma. He has that special something that can't be taught in a classroom. I stared down at my dessert plate, pushing the tiramisu around with my fork. Next to me, Grandmother Elaine reached under the table and squeezed my hand. Tyler has the ability to connect with people, to make friends wherever he goes. That's a skill that will take him far in this world. Further than any degree. My father's voice swelled with pride. And while his grades might not have been stellar, he stuck with it. He persevered. He graduated. And for that accomplishment, his mother and I couldn't be prouder. More applause. My mother was dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. So tonight, we wanted to give Tyler something special. Something to mark this achievement and help him take his first steps into the adult world. Dad reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box wrapped in silver paper. He handed it to Tyler, who accepted it with a grin that barely concealed his anticipation. Go ahead, son. Open it. Tyler tore into the wrapping paper. Inside was a small jewelry box. He opened it and his eyes widened. He pulled out a key attached to a leather fob with a familiar logo. No way, he breathed. Dad, are you serious? My father's smile widened. Completely serious. It's parked out back. The room erupted in excited chatter. Tyler jumped up from his seat and hugged our father, then our mother, who was now openly crying. Let's go see it, someone shouted. And suddenly everyone was standing, moving toward the back exit of the restaurant that led to the parking lot. I followed automatically, a hollow feeling spreading through my chest. Outside, under the glow of the parking lot lights, sat a brand new Audi A4 in gleaming silver. It had to be worth at least $40,000. Tyler was circling it in disbelief, running his hands over the smooth paint. Our father stood nearby, accepting congratulations from relatives as if he'd built the car himself. What a generous gift, Aunt Carla gushed. Well, he earned it, Dad replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. For years of college completed. Time for a proper reward. The irony of that statement wasn't lost on me. For years of mediocre performance rewarded with a luxury car, while my academic excellence had warranted nothing. After several minutes of exclaiming over the car's features, the group began drifting back inside for coffee. I lingered in the parking lot, needing a moment alone. Grandmother Elaine stayed behind with me. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. "I'm fine," I said automatically. "It's a nice car." "Emily," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to pretend with me." I swallowed hard. "I'm happy for Tyler." "Really?" She didn't contradict me, but her knowing look said plenty. We walked back inside together. When we returned to the private dining room, the server was pouring coffee. Tyler was still glowing with excitement, showing the key to our cousins as if they hadn't just seen the actual car. My father cleared his throat again as everyone settled back into their seats. "While we're on the subject of adulthood," he said, his tone notably different, "there's another matter to address." He turned to look directly at me, and something in his expression made my stomach clench. "Emily," he said, no warmth in his voice. "Now that you've been working full-time for nearly half a year, your mother, and I feel it's appropriate for you to start contributing more substantially to the household." The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Even Tyler stopped playing with his car key. "Starting this month, we'll be expecting rent," my father continued, as casually as if discussing the weather. $900 due by Sunday. "That's far less than you'd pay for an apartment in town, so I think it's more than fair." I stared at him, unable to process what I was hearing. $900 was almost a third of my monthly take-home pay. And the timing of this announcement, immediately after gifting Tyler an expensive car for doing the bare minimum, felt deliberately cruel. "I already contribute to groceries and utilities," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "And I've been paying my own expenses since high school." My father's expression hardened. "You're an adult now, Emily. Adults pay their way. 900 by Sunday." The silence around the table was deafening. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Some pitying, some uncomfortable, some curious to see how I'd respond. "I don't understand," I said, my voice somehow remaining calm despite the storm inside me. "Why do I have to pay rent when Tyler gets rewarded with a car? He's never held a job. He's never contributed anything to household expenses." "That's different," my father said dismissively. "How is it different?" I pressed. The words were coming from somewhere beyond my conscious control. "We both graduated college. If anything, I did better than he did. I worked through school. I've been paying my own way for years. Why does he get a $40,000 car while I get handed a bill?" My father's face flushed red. When he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. "Because he's worth it." For words. For simple words that confirmed everything I'd suspected but had been denying for years. In my father's eyes, Tyler was worth investing in. I was not. The silence that followed was absolute. My mother stared down at her coffee cup. Tyler looked uncomfortable for the first time all evening. Around the table, relatives shifted in their seats, suddenly fascinated by their desserts. Only Grandmother Elaine moved. She placed her napkin deliberately on the table and stood up. "If you'll excuse me," she said, her voice clear and cold. "I find I've lost my appetite for this celebration." She looked at me. "Emily, would you mind walking me to my car? These old knees aren't what they used to be." Grateful for the escape, I stood up. "Of course, Grandmother." As we left the private dining room, I could hear the awkward conversations resuming behind us. My father's voice rose above the others, already launching into a story about Tyler's first driving lesson, as if the exchange with me had never happened. In the parking lot, Grandmother Elaine gripped my hands tightly. "That was unforgivable," she said, her eyes fierce. "Do you hear me, Emily? Unforgivable." "It's okay," I said automatically. "It is not okay. It has never been okay." She squeezed my hands. "You listen to me. You are worth everything. Everything. Don't you ever let anyone, especially that father of yours, tell you otherwise." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Call me tomorrow," she said. "Promise me." "I promise." After Grandmother Elaine left, I composed myself and returned to the dining room. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I smiled when appropriate. answered questions politely, and helped my mother collect Tyler's cards and gifts. No one mentioned my father's announcement again, though I caught several relatives watching me with curious or pitying expressions. When it was finally time to leave, I declined the offer to ride with my parents, saying I needed to return some work emails and would stay in town a bit longer. It was a lie, but I couldn't bear the thought of being trapped in a car with them. Instead, I sat in my old Honda in the restaurant parking lot and finally allowed the tears to come. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's words echoing in my head. Because he's worth it. For words that crystallized a lifetime of feeling less than, of being overlooked, of trying desperately to earn the love and recognition that came so easily to Tyler. As I lay in my childhood bedroom staring at the ceiling, memories flooded back with painful clarity. The Christmas when Tyler received the latest gaming system while I got practical clothes for work. The time I won a state debate championship and my parents skipped the ceremony because Tyler had a minor cold. The family vacation photos where Tyler was always centered between our parents while I stood slightly apart. Each memory carried a new sting now that the truth had been spoken aloud. It wasn't that my parents couldn't see my worth. They had assessed it and found it lacking. Morning came with no resolution, just exhaustion and a dull ache behind my eyes. I showered and dressed for work on autopilot, then headed downstairs. Tyler was already at the kitchen table, car keys placed prominently beside his cereal bowl. He glanced up when I entered. "Morning," he said, a slight smirk playing at his lips. "Want to see my new ride before you head out?" I poured coffee into a travel mug. "I saw it last night." "Yeah, but you didn't get to experience it. The sound system is incredible." He twirled the keys around his finger. "Dad says he's going to add me to the insurance today. Premium coverage." The same father who expected me to pay $900 in rent by Sunday. I said nothing, focusing on adding cream to my coffee. Mom entered the kitchen in her bathrobe. "Emily, are you eating breakfast?" "Not hungry," I said. "I need to get to work early anyway." She fidgeted with the tie of her robe. "About last night. Your father just wants you to be independent. He thinks it will be good for you to understand the value of money." The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. Right. Because Tyler clearly needs no such lesson. "That's different," she said, echoing Dad's words from the night before. "How?" I asked. "How is it different, Mom?" She had no answer, just an uncomfortable shrug. "That's just how your father sees it." I nodded slowly. "And how do you see it?" Her eyes started away from mine. "It's complicated, Emily." It wasn't complicated. It was painfully simple. My mother would never stand up to my father. Not even when he was blatantly unfair to her daughter. "I have to go," I said, grabbing my purse. "Don't want to be late." "Emily," my mother called as I headed for the door. "Are you okay?" I paused, hand on the doorknob. "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired." At work, I struggled to focus on my tasks. Jordan, my desk mate at the marketing firm, noticed my distraction. "Rough night?" she asked during our coffee break. "You could say that." I hesitated, then found myself telling her about the dinner, the car, the rent demand, and those 4 devastating words. Jordan's expression grew increasingly outraged as I spoke. When I finished, she shook her head in disbelief. "That's messed up, Emily. Seriously messed up." "I know," I said. The validation both comforting and painful. "So, what are you going to do?" It was the question I'd been avoiding all night and morning. What could I do? Pay the unfair rent and continue living in a house where I'd never be valued? Refuse and risk being thrown out? Confront my father again and demand equal treatment? None of the options felt right. "I don't know," I admitted. During my lunch break, I called Grandmother Elaine as promised. She listened silently as I recounted the morning's interactions. "I've been thinking about this all night, Emily," she said when I finished. "What your father did was emotional abuse, plain and simple. The question is, what happens now?" "I don't know," I repeated. "I feel stuck." "You're never stuck. My dear, you always have choices." Her voice softened. What do you want, Emily? Not what you think you should want, or what would make others happy. What do you want? The question hit me like a physical force. What did I want? I'd spent so long trying to earn my parents' approval that I'd rarely considered what would make me happy. I want to be somewhere I'm valued, I said finally. Somewhere I don't have to constantly prove my worth. Then that's what you should do, Grandmother Elaine said simply. You have a good job. You're smart, capable, and hardworking. You don't need them, Emily. You never did. After we hung up, I sat in my car and let her words sink in. I didn't need them. The revelation was terrifying and liberating all at once. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. How are you holding up after last night? I called her instead of texting back. When I told her about the morning's interactions and my conversation with Grandmother Elaine, she didn't hesitate. Move in with me, she said immediately. My roommate just moved out last week. Remember? The bedroom is yours if you want it. No pressure, no judgment, no ridiculous rent for a household where you're treated like a second-class citizen. Are you serious? I asked, hope flickering for the first time since the dinner. Completely serious. We've lived together before. We know we're compatible. And the apartment is only 15 minutes from your office. I opened my banking app and checked my savings. $5,642. Not a fortune, but enough for a security deposit, first month's rent. Staying meant continuing to live under my father's unfair rules, constantly reminded of my perceived lesser value. Leaving meant a clean break, a chance to build a life where I was appreciated. The more I thought about it, the clearer the answer became. I wouldn't find what I needed in that house. I never had. By the time I left work, my decision was made. I called Sophia from the parking lot. I'll take the room, I said. Yes, she cheered. When do you want to move? Tonight, I said, surprising myself with my certainty. If my parents and Tyler go out, I can pack without a confrontation. Text me when the coast is clear, Sophia said. I'll bring boxes and be your getaway driver. As I drove home, a plan formed in my mind. I would pack efficiently, taking only what I truly needed. I would leave enough money to cover the rent demand plus utilities. And I would write a note explaining my departure in terms my father might eventually understand, even if he wouldn't like it. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of purpose and clarity. I was choosing myself. I was declaring my own worth. Fortune was on my side when I arrived home. A note on the kitchen counter informed me that my parents had gone to dinner with friends to continue celebrating Tyler's graduation. And Tyler himself had taken his new car to show off to his friends. I would have the house to myself for at least 3 hours. I texted Sophia immediately, all clear. Can you come now? Her response was immediate. On my way. Bringing boxes and Jordan from work who wants to help too. I went up to my bedroom and surveyed it with new eyes. What did I actually need to take? What could I leave behind? The room had been mine since childhood, filled with accumulated possessions from different phases of my life. Academic trophies lined one shelf. Books filled another. The closet contained clothes ranging from professional attire to old college sweatshirts. I started with the essentials, my work clothes, casual wear, shoes, and personal care items. As I carefully folded blouses and slacks into my suitcase, I found myself remembering when I'd worn each item. The blue blazer I'd bought for my first job interview. The dress I'd worn to graduation. The sweater Grandmother Elaine had given me last Christmas. Each piece told a story of my journey toward independence, a journey I was now completing. Next came important documents, birth certificate, Social Security card, passport, insurance information, and financial records. I organized them in a folder along with a flash drive containing digital copies of important files. Books were a harder decision. I'd collected hundreds over the years, many with notes in the margins and dog-eared pages marking favorite passages. In the end, I selected 20 that had special meaning and packed them carefully in a small box. My laptop and electronics were obvious necessities, along with their chargers and accessories. I packed my jewelry box containing the pearl necklace from grandmother Elaine and a few other sentimental pieces. As I worked, I found myself becoming more methodical, less emotional. This wasn't a rash decision driven by hurt feelings. It was a calculated move toward self-preservation. The doorbell rang just as I was finishing the first round of packing. Sophia and Jordan stood on the porch with flattened, moving boxes and determined expressions. Ready to stage a great escape? Sophia asked, giving me a quick hug. As ready as I'll ever be, I replied. With 3 of us working, the packing went quickly. Jordan assembled boxes while Sophia helped me sort through items, offering clear-headed advice about what was worth taking and what could be replaced later. Remember, you can always come back for non-essentials, she reminded me as I hesitated over a collection of framed photos. Focus on what you need for the next few weeks. We were about halfway through when I heard a car in the driveway. Peering out the window, I saw my mother getting out of her car alone. My mom's home, I whispered. You guys keep packing. I'll talk to her. I met her in the kitchen as she was putting leftover containers in the refrigerator. She looked surprised to see me. Oh, Emily. I thought you'd be out with friends. Just catching up on some things in my room, I said casually. She nodded, then looked at me more closely. Are you all right? You seem different. For a moment, I considered telling her everything. That I was leaving, that I couldn't stay in a house where I was so clearly undervalued, that I wished she had stood up for me just once against my father's blatant favoritism. Instead, I said, I'm fine, Mom. Just tired from work. Where's Dad? Still at the restaurant with the Millers. I had a headache, so I came home early. She hesitated. About last night, Emily. Your father doesn't always express himself well, but he loves you. You know that, right? Did he? I wasn't sure anymore. Love wasn't supposed to come with constant comparisons and impossible standards. I know, Mom, I said, because it was easier than arguing. I should get back to my room. I have some work emails to answer. Upstairs, Sophia and Jordan had made impressive progress. Most of my essential belongings were packed and labeled. My closet was half empty. Drawers neatly organized with the items I was leaving behind. Your mom, Sophia whispered. I nodded. She doesn't suspect anything. Let's keep going, but quietly. For the next hour, we worked in near silence, communicating with gestures and whispers. When the last box was packed, I surveyed my room. It looked surprisingly normal, just neater than usual. Unless someone opened drawers or the closet, they might not immediately notice how much was missing. Let's load the car, Jordan suggested. I'll pull mine around back so your mom doesn't see us carrying boxes out the front door. We formed a quiet assembly line, passing boxes down the back stairs and through the kitchen door while my mother watched television in the living room. By some miracle, she didn't come into the kitchen during our operation. With Jordan's car loaded, I faced my final task, the note. I sat at my desk and pulled out a sheet of paper and pen. What are you going to say? Sophia asked, sitting on the edge of my now stripped bed. The truth, I replied, but in a way that won't burn bridges completely. I thought carefully about each word, wanting to be clear without being cruel. After several drafts, I had a version I was satisfied with. Mom, Dad, and Tyler. By the time you read this, I will have moved out. I've found an apartment with a friend where I can be truly independent, as Dad wishes. In the envelope, you'll find $1,075. That covers the requested $900 rent plus my share of utilities and groceries for the month. Consider all accounts settled between us. I want you to know that this isn't a hasty decision made in anger. Last night simply crystallized what I've felt for years, that my efforts and achievements are valued differently than Tyler's in this family. When Dad said Tyler was worth it while handing me a bill, I finally understood that this dynamic will never change as long as I remain in this house. I'm not writing this to hurt you or to extract apologies. I'm writing to explain that I need to be somewhere my worth isn't constantly in question. Somewhere I can build my own life based on my own values. I'll be in touch when I'm settled. Please respect my decision and give me some time and space. With love despite everything, Emily. I folded the note and placed it in an envelope along with the cash from my savings account. On the outside, I wrote simply family. It's perfect, Sophia said after reading it. Clear, but not bitter. Are you sure about this? Jordan asked. It's a big step. I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything. We did a final sweep of my room, checking for anything important I might have forgotten. I took one last look at the space that had been mine since childhood, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. Downstairs, I placed the envelope prominently on the refrigerator, secured with a magnet. My mother was still absorbed in her show, unaware of what was happening just rooms away. For a brief moment, I considered saying goodbye to her. But that would lead to questions I wasn't ready to answer, attempts to make me stay that I might not be strong enough to resist. Instead, I slipped out the back door with my friends, closing it softly behind me. As Jordan drove away from my childhood home, I didn't look back. I was too busy looking forward. Sophia's apartment was nothing special from the outside, a standard 2-bedroom in a complex near downtown. But as she unlocked the door and ushered me in with my first boxes, it felt like a sanctuary. Home sweet home, she announced, flicking on the lights. Your room is on the left. It's not huge, but it gets great morning light. The bedroom was simple but clean, with freshly painted white walls and a window overlooking a small courtyard. Sophia had already set up a bed frame with a new mattress still wrapped in plastic. I ordered it when my last roommate gave notice, she explained. Consider it a housewarming gift. We spent the evening arranging my belongings and ordering pizza. Jordan stayed to help until everything was unpacked and organized. By midnight, the room looked lived in, with my clothes hanging in the closet, books arranged on the shelf Sophia had cleared for me, and my laptop set up on the desk under the window. How does it feel? Jordan asked as we collapsed on the living room couch with the last slices of pizza. Surreal, I admitted. I keep expecting my phone to explode with messages. They probably haven't found the note yet, Sophia said. But when they do, she made an explosion gesture with her hands. I checked my phone. Nothing yet. I should call grandmother Elaine, let her know what happened. My grandmother answered on the second ring, despite the late hour. Emily? Is everything all right? I told her about my decision and the move. Instead of expressing surprise or concern, she sounded relieved. You've done the right thing, my dear. Sometimes the only way to be valued is to remove yourself from those who undervalue you. There was a pause. Where are you staying? With my friend Sophia. Remember, I told you about her? We roomed together in college. Good, good. And your job? You're still close enough to work. Even closer now, actually. It's only 15 minutes away. Excellent. Now listen, Emily. When your parents realize what's happened, they may try to guilt you into coming back. Your mother especially. Stand firm. This is about your self-respect. I will, I promised. And if you need anything at all, you call me. Financial help, advice, or just an ear to listen. I'm here. After we hung up, I felt a wave of exhaustion crash over me. The adrenaline that had carried me through the day was finally wearing off. I think I need to sleep, I told Sophia. Today has been a lot. Go, she said, shooing me toward my new room. Rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps. I fell into a deep, dreamless sleep almost immediately. When I woke the next morning, sunlight was streaming through the unfamiliar window. For a moment, I was disoriented, then the events of the previous day came rushing back. I reached for my phone. 7 missed calls from my mother. 3 from my father. 1 from Tyler. A dozen text messages ranging from confused to angry. Mom, Emily, where are you? We found your note. Please call me right away. Dad, this is ridiculous and immature. Call home immediately. Tyler. What the hell, sis? Mom's freaking out. I set the phone aside without responding. I needed coffee and clarity before engaging with any of them. In the kitchen, Sophia was already up, making breakfast. The family discovered your disappearance, I take it, she asked, nodding toward my phone as it buzzed with another incoming call. Apparently. I poured myself coffee. I'm not ready to talk to them yet. You don't have to. Take your time. Throughout the day, the calls and messages continued. My mother's grew increasingly desperate. Emily, please just let us know you're safe. Your father isn't himself. He's worried sick. At least tell me where you're staying. I won't tell him if you don't want me to. My father's alternated between anger and attempts at authority. This childish behavior stops now. Come home and we'll discuss this like adults. I expect you back by dinner time. This has gone far enough. Tyler's messages were the most surprising. Mom hasn't stopped crying. Dad's on the warpath. What am I supposed to do here? Seriously. Who's going to make Sunday dinner now? Dad asked me, and I don't even know how to turn on the oven. Is this because of the car? Because you can drive it sometimes if you want. His self-centered perspective would have been funny if it weren't so sad. He genuinely couldn't grasp that this wasn't about the car itself, but what it represented. By evening, I felt steady enough to respond, but only to my mother. I'm safe and well. I'm staying with a friend. I need some space right now. Please respect that. Her response was immediate. Just tell me you're coming home soon. I didn't reply to that. On Monday, I went to work as usual. Jordan had already explained the situation to our team leader, who was sympathetically brief when asking how I was settling into my new place. Fine, thanks, I said. It's an adjustment, but a good one. Well, if you need any flexibility with your schedule this week, just let me know. The day passed normally until lunch, when the receptionist called to say I had a visitor. My father was waiting in the lobby, his expression thunderous. You can't just run away from home, he said without preamble when I approached him. I didn't run away, I replied calmly. I moved out. There's a difference. Without discussing it with us? Without even saying goodbye to your mother? Do you have any idea how upset she is? I explained everything in my note. His face flushed. That note was ridiculous. All this drama because I asked you to pay a reasonable rent? Because your brother got a graduation gift? You're acting like a spoiled child. The old Emily would have apologized, would have tried to smooth things over. The new Emily stood her ground. I'm acting like an adult who deserves to be treated with respect, I said quietly. What you said at the dinner hurt me deeply, Dad. Because he's worth it. As if I'm not? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He faltered, unable to reframe his cruel words in a positive light. You're twisting things. The point is you need to come home. Your mother is beside herself. I'm not coming home, I said firmly. I've found an apartment with a friend. My rent is paid through the month. I have everything I need. This is absurd. You can't just leave your family. I haven't left the family. I've left the house. There's a difference. I glanced at my watch. I need to get back to work. Please don't come to my workplace again. If you want to talk, you can call me. I walked away before he could respond, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. That evening, Tyler showed up at Sophia's apartment. I was surprised he'd managed to find the address until he explained that he'd followed me from work. Stalking is a crime, you know, Sophia said, only half joking as she let him in. Tyler looked uncomfortable standing in our living room, fidgeting with his car keys. Nice place, he said awkwardly. What do you want, Tyler? I asked. Mom's a mess, he said. She's barely eating. Dad's angry all the time. The house is, it's weird without you. I'm sorry Mom's upset, I said sincerely. But this isn't about hurting anyone. It's about doing what's right for me. By running away? By removing myself from a situation where I was consistently undervalued, I corrected. Where my brother gets a new car for graduating while I get handed a bill. He had the grace to look embarrassed. About the car. I didn't know Dad was going to do that. The rent thing, I mean. It wasn't my idea. I know that. But you've benefited from the double standard our entire lives, Tyler. You've never had to work for anything. Everything has been handed to you while I've had to earn every scrap of recognition. He stared at the floor. I never thought about it like that. I know you didn't. That's part of the problem. There was a long silence before he spoke again. So you're really not coming back? No. I'm building my own life now. He nodded slowly. I don't know how to do laundry, he admitted, or cook anything besides ramen. Despite everything, I laughed. Maybe it's time you learned. When he left, he looked thoughtful, almost introspective. It was an expression I rarely saw on my brother's face. Over the next few weeks, a new routine emerged. I went to work, came home to the apartment I shared with Sophia, and gradually built a life independent of my family. I spoke to my mother on the phone occasionally. Brief conversations that carefully avoided discussing when I might come to my senses and return home. Grandmother Elaine visited one weekend, taking me and Sophia to lunch and inspecting my new living situation with approval. You look different, she observed. More confident. I feel different, I admitted. Lighter somehow. That's what happens when you put down a burden you were never meant to carry, she said wisely. The most surprising development came a month after I'd left, when my team leader called me into her office. I've been impressed with your work these past few weeks, she said. Particularly how you handled the Jenkins account during a personally difficult time. There's a senior marketing position opening up next month. I'd like you to apply. The promotion would mean a substantial salary increase and more responsibility. It would also be a validation of everything I'd been working toward. Thank you, I said. I'd be honored to apply. As I left her office, I realized that for the first time in my life, I was being valued exactly as I deserved. 6 months after the night that changed everything, my life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. I was living in my own one-bedroom apartment, a sunny corner unit in a complex near the park. The promotion had come through, allowing me to afford the place on my own when Sophia decided to move in with her boyfriend. My new space was entirely mine, decorated with plants, art prints, and furniture I had chosen myself. No hand-me-downs, no compromises to match someone else's taste. Every object reflected my preferences, my style, my life. My support system had expanded beyond Sophia to include Jordan and other colleagues who had become friends, neighbors in my building, and members of a book club I'd joined. I had created a chosen family of people who valued me for exactly who I was. My relationship with my parents had evolved into something more distant, but in some ways more honest. After 3 months of minimal contact, my father had finally called with something resembling an apology. I may have been too harsh, he admitted, which was as close as he'd ever come to acknowledging a mistake. Your mother misses you. I miss her too, I said. But I don't miss feeling like I had to constantly prove my worth. He was silent for a long moment. You were always so capable, Emily. So independent. Tyler needed more support, more guidance. There's a difference between supporting someone and enabling them, I pointed out. And there's a difference between recognizing independence and taking it for granted. Another long silence. Your promotion, he said finally. Your mother told me. That's impressive. The youngest senior marketing associate in the company's history, she said. Thank you, I replied, surprised by the acknowledgement. Perhaps we could have dinner sometime. Your mother and I. At a restaurant, he added quickly. Neutral territory. It was a small olive branch, but I accepted it. The dinner was stilted but civil. My father asked questions about my work, actually listening to the answers. My mother hugged me too tightly when we parted, as if afraid I might disappear again. We established a new pattern after that. Monthly dinners. Always at restaurants. Polite phone calls on holidays and birthdays. A relationship with boundaries that I controlled, rather than one where I was constantly seeking approval that would never come. My mother made more efforts to connect individually, occasionally meeting me for lunch or sending texts just to check in. She remained with my father, still reluctant to challenge his decisions directly, but there was a new awareness in her eyes when she looked at me. A recognition, perhaps, of the strength it had taken to leave. The most dramatic change had been in Tyler. Forced to fend for himself for the first time, he had floundered initially. The new car lost its novelty when he realized he had to pay for gas and insurance himself, now that my father had implemented a belated financial responsibility plan for him too. 3 months after I left, Tyler got his first job at a local radio station, starting in the mailroom but quickly moving to production assistant when they discovered he had a good ear and solid technical skills. The work seemed to ground him, giving him a sense of purpose he'd lacked before. He called me one evening out of the blue. "I owe you an apology," he said without preamble. "I never realized how unfair things were until you left, and I had to start doing stuff for myself." "Better late than never," I replied, not unkindly. "The thing is, I always thought everything came easily to you. Good grades, job offers, knowing what you wanted. I never saw how hard you worked because you made it look effortless." It was perhaps the most insightful thing my brother had ever said. "Thank you for recognizing that. Anyway," he continued, "I'm paying rent now too. And doing my own laundry. Though I did turn one white shirt pink last week." I laughed. That's practically a rite of passage. Our relationship had become, if not close, then at least based on mutual respect rather than the old dynamic of him taking and me giving. Throughout my journey of separation and rebuilding, the person who remained my most steadfast support was grandmother Elaine. She visited my new apartment as soon as I was settled, bringing a houseplant as a warming gift. "Every home needs something living and growing," she said. She listened to my struggles and triumphs without judgment, offered advice when asked, but never imposed her opinions. Most importantly, she continued to reflect back to me my own worth when I sometimes wavered in my resolve. The hardest lesson to learn, she told me over tea one Sunday afternoon, is that you cannot make people value you. Your worth is inherent, Emily. It exists whether others recognize it or not. Healing came gradually. Through therapy sessions where I unpacked the patterns of my childhood, through self-care practices that taught me to prioritize my own well-being, and through building relationships based on reciprocity rather than constant giving. I began dating again after 6 months, cautiously at first. I met Alexander at a work function. A graphic designer whose quiet confidence and genuine interest in my thoughts was refreshingly different from previous relationships where I'd fallen into the caretaker role. "You're remarkably self-possessed," he commented on our third date. "You know who you are." "That's a recent development," I admitted. "I spent most of my life trying to be who other people wanted me to be." "Well, I like who you actually are," he said simply. When Thanksgiving approached, grandmother Elaine invited me, my parents, Tyler, and Alexander to her home for dinner. It was the first time we would all be together since the night I'd left. I was nervous as we drove to her house. Alexander's steady presence beside me a comforting anchor. "They're going to love you," I assured him. "And if they don't, their loss." Spoken like someone who knows her own worth. He replied with a smile. The gathering was surprisingly pleasant. My father was cordial if somewhat stiff. My mother fussed over everyone equally. Tyler, to my shock, helped set the table and clear dishes without being asked. The conversation flowed more easily than I had expected, carefully avoiding contentious topics, but finding common ground in neutral subjects. As we prepared to leave, my father pulled me aside. "Your grandmother is very proud of you," he said. "We all are." It wasn't quite an apology. And it came too late to erase the hurt of that night 6 months ago. But it was something, a small acknowledgement that perhaps he had been wrong. "Thank you," I said. "That means a lot." The truth was, I no longer needed his approval the way I once had. I had learned to validate myself, to recognize my own accomplishments, to set boundaries that protected my sense of self. The journey from that devastating dinner to my current life had been painful but necessary. I had discovered a strength I didn't know I possessed, built a support system that truly valued me, and created a life on my own terms. Sometimes the most profound growth comes from the deepest wounds. Sometimes you have to leave behind what's familiar to discover what's possible. And sometimes, the most important lesson is the simplest: you're worth it. Not because someone else says so, but because it's the immutable truth of your existence. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who couldn't see your worth? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of finding strength through adversity. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. Thank you for listening. And may you always know your true value, no matter what anyone else says.